Welcome to the NBA Hangout presented by Playbook Sports. I'm your host, Brandon. With me, as always, is Dave. Dave, how are you?
I'm good, man. I'm good. I'm just kind of embarrassed you started that open while I was yawning.
No, that's okay. It is late. It is a late night. But we got stuff to talk about. Conference finals predictions, of course. We have Mavs versus Minnesota in the conference finals for the West, and we have Indiana faces Boston in the East. So we could talk about all those angles there. And then, of course, what's next for the teams that got eliminated, including Cleveland, OKC, Denver, and New York, as lots of those teams have a lot of questions heading into the offseason. But first, how was your week watching basketball?
Yeah, it was really good. We had a lot of series go to 7. I think we were saying the other week that if Knicks and Pacers went to 7, the Pacers had a stronger chance, and I think we were right. There was also draft combine workouts were going on. Young Bronny James looked good. He's improved his draft buzz, if you will. So yeah, it's been a good week. It's been a good week, unless you're like Jalen Brunson because you broke your hand.
Yeah, it's unfortunate. You had a good playoff run until the end there. But yeah, lots of exciting games. 2 game 7s we had the other night, and we also had a game 6 that was decided by 1 point, which was very exciting. Came down to a call, questionable to some, but I think right call in the end in there. But let's start with the teams that won and give them some flowers. So we're looking at Minnesota against the Mavs in the conference finals, the Western Conference Finals. What are your first thoughts when you see that matchup?
My first thoughts are of the bracket you made me fill out before the playoffs, where I had Oklahoma playing the Denver Nuggets, and I was completely wrong. It's really fun. It's fun to be wrong, guys.
We'll just talk about your East bracket, because that one is looking pretty good. But no,
East bracket's on point.
Yeah, East bracket is right on point. But yeah, for Minnesota, I just want to start by kind of giving them their flowers, particularly Cat and Chris Finch, because Cat last year in the playoffs, he had a pretty weak series, underwhelming for his level of play, I would say. And the kind of knock on him has been how soft he is in the playoffs. And I think this playoff run so far, he showed a different competitiveness to himself that we just haven't seen in the past. Not backing down. Like, he took on the challenge of guarding Jokic for majority of the last couple of games there where they did win, and he gave him problems. Like we were talking earlier, it was weird to see Jokic kind of look to go pair instead of Cat near the end of that one. But I also want to give Chris Finch some flowers too for leaving Cat on him. It's easy to have the defensive player of the year and kind of be like, this is the matchup. We want to make sure that Jokic is being guarded by the best defender that we know to have. But recognizing that Cat was the better defender there and switching up defensive schemes throughout the series, I think was really beneficial for Minnesota, and a testament to how good of a coach Chris Finch has been this playoffs.
Yeah, from the bench. Injured Chris Finch.
Yeah.
Not going anywhere.
Gotta be there.
Okay, so Cat is one of those infuriating players because he does, like, there's a reason, he was a first overall pick, right?
If not top 3,
yeah. So he has all the talent in the world, which includes the defensive side, and he's showing us what he's got. But the problem with Carl is that he's wildly inconsistent, and he's inconsistent in like a mind-boggling way, where it's seemingly like when he cares, it's there, but he's a hard guy to get to care about everything. I would still probably be beating the drum to, find a more consistent player for Anthony Edwards to be teamed up with, even if they won the championship this year. And Cat's amazing, because I'd be like, sell high, baby. Sell high. Somebody's going to bet on this guy, Because I hate to say it, but I do believe like he's still going to infuriate you, for years to come if he's like a number 1 or a number 2 on your team.
Yeah, I could see that point for sure. I think for him, recognizing that he's not a number 1 has been big for him, especially for like this run for them. And being the player he is, the alpha that he is, inserting himself as the focal point of the offense and being the guy on and off the court, I think has done a lot for Cat to kind of fade to the background. So then when he does have those inconsistencies, they're not as loud as they usually are. But I think you're right in the sense that, yeah, like having Anthony Edwards covers up a lot of that. And if they were able to get someone with a little more consistency, a little more reliability, they should probably go for that. Or this could just be a turning point for Cat where he makes it this far in the playoffs and he sees this is the way he needs to play. This is the style of play that's going to get him get the team wins and make it far in the playoffs, and he'll need to continue this type of play if he wants to see a successful career and making those like extra winning plays and not just doing it in spurts but bringing it every time. We kind of saw the same thing from like Andrew Wiggins in that 2022 run for Golden State, where everyone's kind of like the inconsistency of his play has been mind-boggling to a lot of people, but then for that particular run he was able to piece it together and be consistent, play a role to the highest of levels, like be a star in your role, as they say, and he was that for that run. And we probably saw the best version of Andrew Wiggins because of that. I think we might be seeing the best version of Cat if he can continue to do that for the rest of this run.
Yeah, just I don't know. I think I wouldn't want to fall for the delusion. I would actually rather trade for a slightly worse but more consistent player.
More consistent player.
Right? I don't know if I can bet on him. I just don't. And he could win the championship this year and win playoff MVP this year. And I still don't know if I'd want to bet on him.
Yeah, and that's funny because like I could see that 100%. But for me, that player is Gobert. Like right now, I think in the playoffs, he's leading the playoffs in like plus minus. He's plus 111. Wow. For the Denver series, he was plus 49, I want to say. Again, second on the team with that. I think first was Mike Conley. But just the way that he kind of limits their offense at times and allows them to play a certain way, which is very good for the season. Get you through the regular season is essential for that. But when it comes to playoff time, that versatility just tends to matter a little bit more. Now he's been great. Like I said, like his on-offs are looking great this year. But I just think there's points in the game where you can see where he's not as useful as he is during the regular season. And that comes to show in the light in the playoffs. And they can win this championship, and I'll still have my doubts with Rudy Gobert. So this is a weird team. So how do you feel with them matching up against their opposition in the Dallas Mavericks?
We were just slagging their front court, but I would say it's better than the Mavericks. I think the overall talent of the backcourt on the Mavericks is better. The combination of Luka and Kyrie versus the combination of Anthony Edwards and Mike Conley. Conley star in his role, like you just said, but he just doesn't have the same kind of skill level as the other three guys mentioned. He's been the X factor in seemingly every series so far, but I think it's McDaniels. McDaniels will make or break this next series.
Yeah, he's been huge. He's been huge for this team. First series, Anthony Edwards famously said, "They got KD, we got Jaden McDaniels." It's proven to be a very good weapon, Jaden McDaniels. He was terrific in the closeout game in Game 7 last night. Continues to be a threat on offense, enough of a threat for the defense to respect him, and he's a lockdown defender, able to do it all. So it's Army knife, as they say, on that end of the court. So I think he's going to be huge in this series. I was going to ask you that's a question I wanted to ask you was, Mavs basically won that OKC series by overpowering the front court in the end there. Like Derek Lively went crazy in Game 6. He had about like 15 or plus boards. PJ Washington was able to creep in for some clutch rebounds to put away OKC at the end there. So I guess you're saying you don't foresee that being the case in this series coming up against Minnesota.
Well, I think everybody would suggest that OKC's Achilles heel was like overall size, right? Like Chet's a great young player, skilled as the day is long, but he's not a big guy, right? Like he's a tall guy, but he's not a big guy, right? And then it's like, who are they even playing at the 4, right? On any given night. So the combination of Rudy Gobert and Karl Anthony Towns, those are 2 big guys, big, heavy guys. You're just not going to move them around the same way. One's the defensive player of the year. The other one, we've just been talking about how great he was in this series. So I don't think that the same plan of attack will work for the Mavericks this time out. I think for the Mavericks to get through this series, their backcourt needs to be just absolutely special. Like this has to be the Luka Doncic series. This has to be his playoff MVP run right here, right now.
Yeah, I think that's exactly right. I think the front court of Minnesota is just really tough, and then you throw in Naz Reid in there too, and it's just a lot of different styles you can play with that type of versatility. You could put McDaniels up if you really need to go small. You can even use Kyle Anderson. I mean, he wasn't playing too well last game, but if he is playing well, you have that as an option. That's always there. So going into this series, I think you're right. I think it comes down to whose premier player plays better, which a lot of these series do come to that. But do you think who would you think going into this has the better series, Anthony Edwards or Luka Doncic? Because I think that's where this series is kind of going to be won.
I think Anthony Edwards is healthier. I think that momentum is on his side. I would still suggest that Luka is currently a better player, even though, it's been it's been Anthony Edwards playoffs. He's been the story of the playoffs, but Luka's not exactly healthy. And that might be what this one comes down to is Luka's health, Luka's knees. Just a few games ago, I was talking about how everything hurt. That's a scary statement from your superstar, especially at the end of the year, right? We're not even talking like end of the regular season. We're talking like almost the end of the playoffs. A maximum of 14 games remains. I don't know. I think if Luka isn't hurt and goes crazy, the story switches from Edwards to Luka. If Edwards continues this, I mean, look out Boston.
Yeah. If he continues this run, it's really a special one. He's been on so far, and it's hard to your team. Yeah, you're talking about injuries there with the Mavs. It's hard when you're Minnesota and you look over and your coaches.
Your coach is the injured one.
Fired up. Yeah, and he's injured. And he's there every day giving it 110%. You can't let that guy down, man. It's tough.
No, come
right?
on.
So, yeah, I think between the two, Luka to me is still the better player. And has the energy on his side right now. Like, I feel like everyone's just feeding into that to Anthony Edwards hype. Then the energy is there with his players, with his teammates, just around the league. Like the way that even the way that he was guarded in the last series there by Denver, like lots of double teams. That's why it took him a while. He had a pretty poor game 7, shot 6 of 24, but he hit some big ones. But he was urging on his teammates to keep shooting the shot, keep taking the open shots, and he was just trying to navigate doubles because he hasn't had to play through that. This is a learning curve for him still. This is his 4th year. He's 22 years old. He's a young player. He's not naturally a point guard. He's more of a shooting guard scorer. So he's gonna have to learn those reads as he sees them, as they come to him, which he's done a good enough job of doing so far.
Well, and the most amazing part is that, you mentioned he's 22 and he realized like, hey, if my shot isn't falling, I can still affect this game. And he went and played lockdown defense on Jamal Murray. Like he
Took
just,
it personal.
He put that guy in prison. Right. So like, Edwards is clearly going to be a star as early as next season, like an MVP star, like candidate. But yeah, Minnesota's still a young team, right? Like
it's kind of crazy how young they are. I think they don't know how young they are.
They don't know how young they are. I don't think Rudy's ever been this far in the playoffs.
I don't believe so. No, I think second round with Donovan would be the first if they made it that far. Yeah.
So like this is a pretty impressive run for all these guys. And it's the same with like I think Doncic and the Mavs made it to the conference finals a few years ago.
They made it, yeah. And they lost to this. They lost, yeah. But they made it once.
But they made it. I don't think a lot of players are left over from that Mavs teams beyond Doncic, though. So
yeah.
We'll
so let's get into that then. Yeah.
This is gonna be a matchup of two really young superstars, and that's really fun.
So you think the role players there are washed then? Because those role players on both ends have been kind of carrying both teams. Like I mentioned, like PJ Washington, a couple big games for the Mavs. Derrick Jones Jr. had 4 threes last game, and he's always an active defender. And on the Wolves, you have Jaden McDaniels, we talked about it a little bit, who's been providing a big boost. Nikhil Alexander-Walker on the defensive end has been providing a big boost. I mean, his shots kind of wavered in the last couple of games, and defense really haven't been guarding him. But what he can bring on the defensive end is still very important, especially in a series where you have Kyrie Irving. Like I think Nikhil Alexander is what he brings to the team is going to be necessary for this series. And yeah, so between the two teams, the role players, which way are you siding there? And you think it's going to matter less and more about the stars?
I think role players make the playoffs. Stars are going to win you a couple games, but like in those down and out games, like, you know, we look at that game 7 between Minnesota and Denver there, and you know, Nikola Jokic was unbelievable. He was fantastic. Look at his stat line. It's one for the ages. Problem is nobody else on his team was good, right? Aaron Gordon wasn't hitting shots. Michael Porter Jr. wasn't hitting shots. Jamal Murray got put in jail. You know, and meanwhile, Jaden McDaniels had something like 23. Rudy Gobert is hitting turnaround jumpers. You know, Mike Conley's consistent as the day is long. One of the small bummers is that Nikhil doesn't get to play Shea in these next conference finals. A couple of half brothers going at it. That would be so close. That'd be fun, right? You know, little brotherly pride is always a fun thing.
But, yeah.
Yeah, I think the story and the series is going to revolve around our stars, though, and mostly the two frontline stars. I think it's going to be the Shea Luka series, or Shea's, pardon me, the Ant Luka series.
We just had that one.
Yeah, thank you. And it went Luka's way. Yeah,
went Luka's way. Yeah, I think that's what's going to come down to those two players. Who's a better player on most nights? That's whose team's gonna win the series. So before we move on to the Eastern Conference, who do you have in how many and in how many games?
Timberwolves in 7.
Timberwolves in 7.
Only vibes tell me that.
Yeah, I think this matchup favors Timberwolves more. I've been down on the Wolves.
Yeah,
I've been down on the Mavs. I think I've had them losing every round so far. So I think I just have to keep up the trend at this point. But I do feel as if Minnesota's front court, with what they can do, with how together that they're playing, what they can do on the defensive end, can really stifle the Mavs in a way that they kind of stifled Denver. One of the best dynamic duos in the NBA with Jokic and Murray. I think they're able to do something similar to the Mavs, and we'll see. So I have Mavs. I have Wolves probably in like, they have 7 at home, so 6 would be on the road. Wolves in 6. Wolves in 6. Since these series seem to be going longer, I can't do the 5. Wolves in,
No, I don't think anything's going to be a 5. I don't even think Pacers Boston's going to be a 5.
Yeah, and then that's who we'll jump to right now. So we have Pacers and Boston in the Eastern Conference Finals. A new team that we haven't seen in a while, Indiana, in the conference finals. Tyrese for the first time making it to the conference finals, leading a team. Siakam making it back there since 2019. So that's fun for him. I guess my first question for you on this one is, did Indiana's like new grit that they got to gain throughout these playoffs, battling against New York in that tough series, does that carry over and bother Boston just a little bit in this series? I guess you say so, since you don't think this is going under 5 games.
If I'm honest, I think it's Boston in 6. I'd love to see Indiana pull it off. I don't think they would beat the Western Conference team that comes out, making them the like ultimate bridesmaid team of the year with the NBA Cup and then with the playoffs. Huge jump though for Indiana, and like it's been really fun. It's been really fun for Indiana. Really glad to see a team like this get their due. Halliburton seems to be getting healthier and healthier, which is almost unlike any other player in these playoffs. So they might have something going for them there. It's just Boston is so deep. Like Porzingis has been hurt for how long, and has it mattered?
Yeah, it hasn't mattered a little bit.
And I still think, like, if you were to compare Boston and Indiana's front courts, like I think Indiana has a better front court right now. It's just more complete with Turner and Pascal Siakam versus, I'm not even like 100% sure who's playing in Boston's front court right now. Is Tatum playing the power forward, or is he playing?
They haven't played in so long. They've just been resting. No, we haven't had to see them in so long. No, yeah, he's been playing power. They play with Horford. They'll play Cornet at the center sometimes, but mostly Horford. And
yeah. Which, they got Porzingis for a reason. They felt he was the piece that, they were missing after last year's run. He's not going to play game 1. That was announced. It'll be interesting. I just, Boston's so deep. It's so hard to like say bad things about them. Even as like a non-fan, I don't have a lot of bad things to say about them. Other than just like, I don't like them. I don't like them because of Boston. All right. Yeah. They beat my team all the time. All right.
No, yeah, that's the thing. Like, they're pretty, like, there's not many holes on this team. I think, yeah, the one advantage that Indiana does have is that front court right now, as it presently stands. Their issue's going to be on defense. Like, Boston, if they can get into a shooting match with Boston and Boston doesn't slow down Indiana, then yeah, I could see them stealing a game or two, because we know how Indiana gets once their offense clicks. I do like the grit that like TJ McConnell can bring, and Tyrese seems to be playing with a chip on his shoulder. Siakam doesn't really back down from anybody. Turner's been getting a little tougher and tougher as the series have gone on. So I do like that edge for them, and I do like the prospect of them maybe being able to bang them up on the front court, like battle for the rebounds and stuff like that. Maybe play more of a bruiser game. I just am concerned that that's not the style that they've been used to playing. So they're not going to be as effective in it as they probably could been if they were doing that throughout the season more often. Like, they're playing such a run and gun style. This is a style that they've kind of learned through the playoffs, which is a good development piece, and they should be able to take that with them as years follow, as they get older as a core. But just in the blink of things, Boston still has been through battles the last couple of years. They know what it takes. Most of those guys have been through it. So I think that would be enough against this Indiana team. I still see it going like 5. I would be shocked if it goes past that. To be honest, but that might be just me like putting Boston in a high regard, since they've been just dominating everybody throughout the year. And I think if they're supposed to be this super contender, they're supposed to be the best team in the league, they should go through this relatively scar-free. But you never know. That's why the games happen, because we don't know.
Yeah, I mean, and that's kind of the thing. Is like, I think smart money, the betting line says like Boston in like 5-6-ish, right? But this has proven to be a scrappy playoffs. And as you say, the game's got to be played. And I just think the Pacers have more than we give them credit for. Like, we never talk about Andrew Nembhard. That guy can defend his tail off. Like, he'll probably be on like Jaylen Brown. He's going to give Jaylen Brown fits. I wouldn't say Pascal Siakam is like a banger. Like, he's not going to go down there and like throw shoulders into Tatum. But at the same time, like, for a guy that you look at and say, that guy's kind of like skinny and wiry, he's never been like a weak guy. He doesn't back down. He's going to play him hard defense that whole time. Like he keeps in front of you. He's strong. He can take and absorb hits. He can spin off hits.
He loves that.
Like, I think Siakam is a pretty good matchup for Tatum. I think Nembhard is a sneaky matchup for Brown. Drew's obviously going to match up on Halliburton really well. This one's tough. Maybe this is like the Miles Turner series, and until Porzingis comes back, Miles Turner is just like letting it rip and reminding everybody, like, hey, you could have had me multiple times in the last couple of years, and you're all fools. Because I'm raining threes and grabbing rebounds.
Yeah, this is a big one for him. He wanted this.
Fingers crossed.
he when that whole Sabonis, when they were together with Sabonis, and when Sabonis and Turner were both appearing, I remember both of those guys kind of needed their own team. Like they needed their own space, and Sabonis has showed it with Sacramento that he's been able to be a main big on a team and be successful, be a playoff contributor. And same thing with Miles Turner now. Miles Turner is getting his turn to shine as the main big, the number one big on the team. And I think that's great for both those guys. I think it's great for Miles Turner because a lot of people want to trade for him, but I think a lot of people want to use him not in the way of a main player on their team. I think they want to use him as kind of like a second fiddle. Like if games get tight, we're going to pull you. But on this Indiana team, which is part of the reason why I think he wanted to stay, is he wanted to really show that no matter the type of game, I could be out there, I can contribute to winning basketball. And he's been able to do that this playoffs. And Boston will be a big test because Al Horford, even at his age, is a tricky guy to go against. tricky guy. So if he's able to figure him out, that'll be positive signs for him.
It's just Al Horford is like, he's an older guy. They get worn down quicker. He didn't play a lot during the regular season. Now he's playing, at 105% every game. How long can he keep it up? Yes, he got to rest most of the season, but rest isn't always a great thing. It comes with rust.
It's a fine line. Very fine line.
Like Horford's been good since like Porzingis has gone down, but they replaced him with Porzingis for a reason, right? Like they moved him and they said your role is reduced for a reason.
And to be fair, like for most of that series against Cleveland, he was missing a ton of his threes. So that rest did bear fruit. Like that was evident there. Anything else before we move on to what's next for some of those eliminated teams?
I've got my fingers crossed for a Timberwolves championship.
Ooh, that would be fun.
Yeah. Fingers crossed.
I wouldn't be mad at that at all. Keep my bias aside, but I wouldn't be mad at the Wolves winning it all. I'll just say I would like a Western Conference team to win this year. And so let's talk about some of those eliminated teams. How about we start with, we'll stay in the West. So OKC's out. So what's next for OKC? How do you think that they should move in the offseason? They have a plethora of assets. So
yeah,
everyone's noting like the big man, the front court as the move to make, but they have so many assets that they can make two right now. And I think the big man front court situation is going to take care of itself. We can talk about names, of course, but beyond the big men, what do you think is a move or a player or a type of player that they need to go after?
So obviously OKC is blessed with lots of assets and movable assets, be it, they have 1,000,001 picks. I could see them. So I still see San Antonio and OKC as good trade partners with Josh Giddey involved. Bring back like Keldon Johnson and more, right? Where you're getting a ton more versatile shooting wings to complement J-Dub and Shea on your wings, because you're going to go out, you're going to add size to the front court, right? You're just going to do it. Whether or not Chet's your 4 or your 5 moving forward really depends on who you get. Whether you get like a Jared Allen, whether you go and you get like Clint Capella, whether you get a Julius Randle, who knows? You're going to add sides to the front court if you want to change up your backcourt and wings. Like, I think there's a lot of suitors. I think Josh Giddey's the one who's going to be moved. Jalen Williams isn't going anywhere. Shea isn't going anywhere. Nothing. I don't think Josh Giddey's necessarily played his way off the team outside of just being a really good asset for another team. But he's got so many overlapping skills with Shea that I just think that,
now even Jalen Williams, like Jalen Williams has been doing a lot of playmaking too now. So
yeah. So I think you can. I think you have the luxury of being able to move off of such a dynamic playmaker in Josh Giddey. And I think he matches up really well with the Victor Wembanyama, right? Because he's going to feed his best player, right? I don't think like a Trae Young matches well with a Victor. I think Josh Giddey would be the way to go there. And I think you could get enough back from the Spurs to make this a really interesting like trade, a good trade for both teams. So yeah, I think, look, when they didn't make a big trade at the deadline, I thought it was all about testing the playoffs and seeing exactly what they needed. Yeah. So they held their cards back, they held their assets back, if you will, and now they're ready to let it go, let it run wild, if you will.
Yeah. I think that's right. Like, I think the Spurs are an interesting trade partner for sure. Like, when I look at that team, the Spurs, like I think of Zach Collins and what he could do for OKC. Like, if I know that the Spurs like playing Wemby with Zach Collins at times, but throughout as the season progressed, they established Wembanyama as a center. So I think that allows them to free up more space of moving maybe a guy like Zach Collins, who might not be as useful, still a very good player, but maybe more useful on a team like OKC where he could still stretch the floor. He can bang, he could rebound, he could play make, he can keep that offense flowing like the Thunder like to, especially when Shea has to take his rest. But I think, you're ultimately looking for that fifth starter because you're starting Dort kind of played himself. Dort can be a six man, I guess. He doesn't have to be a starter, but Dort throughout the playoffs, I think to me, like he was the one guy with Giddey that I was kind of looking at to see, do you move this guy? But I think with the way that Dort played throughout the playoffs, he's a 16-game player. Like he's a playoff guy. Like he brings all the necessary grit and the necessary defense and the willingness to take big and hit big shots. He brings all of that. You need a guy like that on your team. So I think he's going to be there for the long haul now with the way that he's been playing. But I think you're looking for another starter player. With that being said, you have so much assets. Are you looking at someone like a Mikal Bridges who might free up, who Brooklyn said they're a little more, they're going to have open ears now when it comes to Mikal Bridges as they weren't before? Or are you looking at a guy like a Paul George? Are you looking at those type of players to kind of fill out that fifth starter role? And then you get a big that can play next to Chet on situationally.
Yeah, I mean, I like it all. There's so many options for Oklahoma, and this is why it's a really good time to be an Oklahoma fan. Like they could go out and get Kevin Durant if they wanted.
If they really wanted
to, they could bring him home.
Because God knows the Suns need some picks, man.
Yeah, they can get a lot of picks. So like they can fish in the most luxurious of buckets, if you will. Yeah, Oklahoma's in a really good place. They have the least to be worried about this offseason.
Yeah, I think they'll make the right decisions. I think they know it's time. So the other team out west there is Denver, who, they fall short of their goal. They're the defending champions, so they don't make it all the way back there. They had some key losses with Bruce Bowen last year, not being able to contribute this year because he got traded, and I think they kind of missed some of what he provided. So do you foresee any big moves for Denver, or do you think they're going to kind of stand back and make some minimum moves just to improve the roster?
I see Denver tinkering, not so much really making any seismic shifts. I think they'll probably try to like add some depth in some key places, like add some depth behind Jamal Murray, add some depth in the front court, so that if for whatever reason Aaron Gordon isn't having it, they have another option. Michael Porter Jr. is the one that I could see them flipping, but they would get back a player roughly of Michael Porter Jr.'s stature. Like I think whatever they do with him isn't an upgrade or a downgrade. It'll be a sideways move if they do anything with him. So, I also don't think Denver has to do that much. They're a very complete team. They just barely lost this. We had them repeating. I think most people had them repeating. I don't see a lot of weakness in that team. I would just try and get deeper.
Yeah, no. Yeah, I think that's what they'll go with there. But for them to get deeper, I really think they got to start looking at moving Michael Porter Jr. Like his contract, he has about like 3 more years left before it's over, and it's gonna be at the end there. He's gonna be $40 million a year, and he's like supposedly your third option, third scorer. And I feel like throughout games at times, even last year during the run, he would drift in and out of them. His impact isn't super felt. He can get a shot off no matter what. His defense has improved in the last couple of years, but I still think having so much money allocated to Michael Porter Jr. might make it tough in the future to really flesh out this team as they need to. Christian Brown, he had some great moments during the playoffs as well. Like it seems every series he has a game or two where he kind of pops and you see what he can do. Same thing with Peyton Watson's a guy who played well in the season, but didn't really get much of an opportunity come playoff time, and frankly wasn't trusted as well. Zeke Nagy hasn't really panned out in the way that they wanted him to pan out. So, and yeah, behind Jamal Murray, you only have Reggie Jackson. So I think the only way to kind of get that depth that you're looking for, I think you kind of have to look at Michael Porter Jr., the money that you're assigning to him, and breaking that up for more role guys around Jamal and Jokic. With Jokic too, not Jokic, but with Murray too, he's going to be due for a contract extension soon, like this year or next year. He can. I think he's eligible this year to sign an extension, and he'll be up in a year. So I think they gotta figure out how they want to allocate all that money. And with that being said, I think Michael Porter Jr. is the one piece where I could see them kind of using to kind of fill out their last ditch effort, as you would say.
Yeah, that's fair. I could also see them trying to turn him into like Brandon Ingram. And just like getting a more well-rounded version of Michael Porter Jr. Right?
Yeah, which I think he's going to be sought after, that Brandon Ingram guy. And I think Denver would be a nice spot for him, especially if you're moving off of Michael Porter Jr. And maybe change the scenery. He's a better shooter. He fits around Zion a little better. Like he could spread the floor. He doesn't demand the ball. Like
doesn't demand the ball. Yeah.
Plays great off ball, catch and shoot situation, attacking closeout situation. Like that's kind of his game. So I wouldn't be mad at that at all. Definitely lots of options for Michael Porter Jr. And I guess we could head over to the East now. So I think the big question over here is Cleveland. What are they going to do? It seems that after they lost, a bunch of articles started to pour out. Everyone was just waiting for them to lose so they can get their takes off. But it seems as if no one really knows whether Donovan's committing or not. He seems like Cleveland feels like they're pretty. Cleveland feels confident that they're able to resign him, but other teams feel confident that they're going to be able to get him. So who knows what the real situation is there. But regardless of what happens, it seems like there is going to be movement in Cleveland whether they keep Donovan or not. If they keep Donovan, sounds like Garland wants to be out and find a new home. So how about we start there for Cleveland? If Donovan wants to stay, how do you see them? Where do you see them moving Garland to, and how do you see them filling out that roster?
I hate to say it, but he'll end up a Laker.
I think he will. Yeah,
he'll just end up a Laker, which means that you'll get back like Austin Reeves, and you'll get back, some Cleveland's goals should really be about creating better balance with their team, because their two bigs overlap in skill sets, and their two guards overlap in skill sets, and their guards and bigs heavy. Yeah.
It sounds like Jarrett Allen's going to be on the move too. So
yeah, so when it comes to, they're almost the anti-Denver in this conversation, in that like there's going to be a lot of moves, and they're going to be pretty big moves, but your goal should be to become more Denver-like, have better balance. Look at Boston, have better balance. Because that's been my critique of Cleveland all year, is that they're too guard heavy and they're too bigs heavy.
Yeah.
They need forwards, they need wings, they need size in almost every position except for Evan Mobley's position. So I think it's a critical offseason for Cleveland, but if they're smart and they do it right, like they could come back even better next year. And we're talking about a team that, got to the second round of the playoffs. If they do this right, they're a contender next year. We're talking like not just like an Eastern Conference Finals contender. We're talking a finals contender.
Yeah, because you have Donovan Mitchell there. If you're
keeping Donovan Mitchell.
Yeah. I think your goal there is to fill out this team as best you can to make it work between Donovan and whatever that third piece is that you get Garland for. I think though, if you are gonna move Garland, I get the clutch connection for the Lakers. Are you getting enough back to really be that contender? Is that appeasing to you?
Probably not, but he'll still somehow end up on the Lakers. Just like somehow this offseason, Miami's gonna like turn some junk into some gold. It's just what happens, right? Good players go to LA. Miami spins gold out of nothing. Oklahoma City will end the offseason with even more picks somehow.
They'll just continue to stockpile. That's just how it goes in the NBA.
It's just there are a few rules in the NBA, and those are that.
They'll spend 5 and get back 6 somehow.
Yeah, exactly. Right. They'll be in like 2045, but who cares? They'll be first round picks.
So on the flip side of that, Donovan, I think is going to be gone. I don't foresee him staying there. I think he's
ready. I
just don't think. Yeah, like I think he had a good time in Cleveland. I think he enjoyed his time there. I think he does think favorably of that franchise. But I think when he takes a real like hard look at it, he was talking about how competitive he wanted to be in the playoffs. Like he didn't want to just be a second round out. He's entering his prime now. He wants to have those deep playoff runs that some of his other peers have had. So I think it's his time and his turn for that. Now, what team he gets to, I think is up for the debate. I have no idea where he's gonna go. A part of me feels like it's going to be somewhere like something weird, like the Pelicans or something like that. We'll just end up with him. I could even see him on Houston before I see him on some of these other teams, like because Houston could just use that punch. But other teams that we know rumored for Donovan Mitchell, we know the Heat are very closely linked to him. They like him. Bam and him are close friends. We know the Knicks have been. I mean, we know he likes New York. We don't know if the Knicks still are interested in him. Like, there's a report that the Knicks are interested in Mikal Bridges, which I think makes a lot more sense for that team. But there's Brooklyn as well, who's interested in him, who have all the picks. So I think it kind of depends on like what road Cleveland wants to go with the Donovan Mitchell thing. Like we were talking a little bit before that Cleveland doesn't own most of their future picks. They gave some of that up to get Donovan Mitchell. So
getting picks back or being competitive or not competitive, being not competitive doesn't really favor them since it doesn't really matter where they finish as their picks aren't their own anyway. So I'm wondering, do you think they're going to value in a package players or picks?
I think right now in Cleveland's cycle, they're valuing players. Yeah. I think they want to be competitive next year and probably for the next 5. And I think you can be, whether or not your team is Mobley, Donovan Mitchell led or Mobley, Garland led. Either way, you want people to match around those guys because you're in the window. You're in the window and you stay in the window with players, not picks.
Yeah. So we know that Los Angeles is interested. We know that Brooklyn's interested, and we know that Miami is also interested. There is an interesting report that was just noting that Cleveland is interested in like a player of like Jaime Jaquez. So I think the package of, if we're looking for players, let's say that they're looking for players, then you have the Tyler, Jaime, you could throw Duncan Robinson or whatever it is, and a couple. I think they can get up to 3 picks depending on how they position things. At maximum 3 picks, let's say, and those 2 guys. Is that a starting point for you if you're Cleveland, or is that still kind of far off?
I think it's a starting point. It's probably not the package that I really want. I probably want like a little bit more star power in return, like a 3-way trade to bring you Mikal Bridges might be more ideal to be worked out.
I did have
with Tyler being spun over to Brooklyn kind of thing.
No, I did have a 3-team trade that I tampered with. And it was tied to the Pelicans with, I think it was a pick and Jaime Jaquez. Jaime Jaquez went to either Cleveland or the Pelicans. I can't remember where I put which. But basically, Tyler in a pick to the Pelicans, Brandon Ingram to Cleveland with one of the players, either Jaime or Jokic, one of those 2 guys in the pick, and then Miami gets Donovan Mitchell, some sort of like 3-team trade with that.
Yeah, like that to me is more appealing if I'm Cleveland, right? Because Darius Garland is a smaller guard, he doesn't offer the best defense. You're not necessarily going to want to pair him with a Tyler Hero.
I would agree 100%. That wouldn't be ideal.
Yeah, like Evan Mobley's good. You can't clean up that much.
No, you run into the same issues that you kind of had with having Donovan there, like just 2 defensive liabilities in the guard position and not real big enough size to compete. So you're kind of redoing your same mistake. So I think if Tyler's involved, you want to move him somewhere else to get the player or whatever you want. But the issue with this trade is that if you go to like Brooklyn, then they don't really have the players unless they are willing to give Mikal for Donovan Mitchell. But then what do you have on the Nets for Donovan to be excited about?
Well, and that's it. Like I think any team with Brooklyn needs to be a 3-team trade. Like I don't think Brooklyn is in a competitive window. I think it's incumbent on them to trade Mikal and get futures back. I think they're a team that's more interested in picks right now, even though they've got a ton, because they could build themselves out to be the next Oklahoma City if they're patient. But they also have to be a little ruthless, which means moving a Mikal, moving a Nick Claxton, moving some of your better players, and just being bad and hoping to hit for like, young Cooper Flag, right?
Yeah. I think that's the goal there for Brooklyn. So shifting over to the other New York team, the Knicks, they're also our last limited team. They had a great playoff run, exciting. They brought lots of energy to the playoffs. They just broke down as we kind of predicted they would as the series went on. Those minutes, man, nothing to play with. Nothing to play with. Every time, every team, just breaks down, man. But they have been rumored to be looking into adding another star, whether it be moving Julius Randle to get that piece or moving some of the picks and assets they have. Again, they could be looking at Donovan Mitchell. Mitchell's always liked to be in New York. I think he's from there, so that's been a place he's liked. But outside of Mitchell,
who do you think would be the ideal player for them? I think loosely also Paul George was kind of mentioned as a New York Knicks suitor.
Paul George would be great. Mikal Bridges would be great. To a lesser extent, I think Brandon Ingram would be good. Knicks are in a semi-luxurious place as well. There's a lot of love for New York, a lot of love for playing in Madison Square Garden. And they can go big game hunting a little bit. You don't want to get terribly small offensive guards because you have one of those. You need somebody to match well with Jalen Brunson. I'd like to see maybe a wing, like maybe a big wing. Like Paul George to me is like the best name for the Knicks that I've heard.
Yeah.
It would make the most sense to me. But I've been sitting on this one. I think all 4 of these teams would be great LeBron James destinations.
Oh man. I do forget that guy technically isn't on a team right now.
Yeah. Right. LeBron James can add some size to the front court of Oklahoma City, right? He can show them the winning ways. He can see that team and say, hey, there's enough talent here. I can win 1 more, maybe 2 more if I got it in the tank, right? Cleveland, in a way, is alma mater, his hometown team. He'd go back and add the balance that they need. The lights in New York are just as bright as the lights of LA, and they're a team that's more ready to compete right now than the Lakers. And then
he slides into that New York team pretty seamless. He slides into New York and Cleveland pretty seamlessly right now.
And then imagine Denver with Jokic, Jamal Murray, and LeBron James. How much fun basketball-wise would that be?
That's just high IQ basketball. It's fine. It's like that would be
great basketball. Yeah,
I would be here for that. Of those 4 teams, I can see the Cleveland thing. The Cleveland thing's kind of interesting because that could be your window as to convincing Donovan to stay. It's like, look, we have this guy, LeBron James. I don't know if you've heard of him. He might have played here a couple times. He had 2 stints here. He's looking to finish his career off here. We want you to stay and be a part of that, and lead us into our next phase. That's appealing if you're Donovan Mitchell, I think. If LeBron is open enough to do that, because it sounds like he doesn't really. Not that he doesn't care where Bronny goes, but I think he's more still determined in his own timeline. Like he's still for himself as he should be, and kind of let Bronny be his own for now. So
yeah,
I think he's okay. Like not going to a team that drafts him at this point. But of those 4 teams, I see the Cleveland one as the most appealing to me. New York, I feel like he's teased New York so many times over the years that it's just not gonna ever happen. But I could see the Cleveland thing being a non-zero chance of it happening. How about that? And another team not on this list though is those Warriors, man. Awfully quiet. I wouldn't be shocked.
Also, be really fun basketball. Yeah,
wouldn't be shocked.
But that would be an old man team. That'd be like
it'd be the
ultimate old man. Like we don't jump anymore team.
Yeah,
right?
yeah. One more. We got one more in us. I think that'll do it for this episode. Anything else before we head out?
Actually, not really this week. Yeah, I already talked about Bronny. Knicks draft Bronny. Try your best.
Try. Don't get teased too hard again.
Yeah.
So that'll do it as this episode of the NBA Hangout presented by Playbook Sports. Episode 30. We made the 30 mark. Thank y'all for hanging out for us. You can follow us at the NBA Hangout on Twitter. You can follow me at BJAY93_. You can find Dave here every week. Like and subscribe where you can. Thank y'all. Peace.